Mike is giving us the okay signal, so we are going to bring on our very special guest. His name is Robert Meyer Burnett. I have his Collider Heroes music queued up. You can see him most weeks on Collider Heroes on their YouTube channel. Like I said, he is also a participant of the Schmoes Ultimate Movie Trivia Schmodown. Robert, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. It's an honor to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much
Thank
for
you
calling
for being
in.
here.
So we have just a couple questions to ask you before we get into some of our the bigger news stories that we were talking about. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been working in the entertainment business in various capacities for the last 28 years. My first job, I was the art department production assistant on Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And I worked on movies like Sam Raimi's Army of Darkness. I worked on a Swamp Thing TV series and makeup effects. And sort of I worked my way through the entertainment business. And I was a film editor. I cut a lot of low-budget features. I worked for a company called Full Moon Entertainment. I directed a movie called Free Enterprise that starred William Shatner, that some people remember. I was a producer on the Agent Cody Banks film. And I spent a lot of the last 15 years doing DVD special edition work, DVD and Blu-ray documentaries. I worked on Lord of the Rings and the X-Men movies and Superman Returns and the Chronicles of Narnia. And then most recently I did all of the documentaries on the Star Trek The Next Generation Blu-ray release.
Yeah, just
and then now I'm editing a movie. I'm editing a Jewish spiritual quest called Tango Shalom.
Very cool.
So that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Yeah, checking out your IMDb page, there's a ton of Star Trek documentaries on there. My co-host Bill here is a big Trekkie. Bill, do you have any Star Trek related questions for Robert?
I was hoping that given more time, I'd really like to have like a trivia game with Robert here. I really think it would be great with his expertise in the Trek realm. I don't know. I felt like before this show, I was like, it'd be great to see if Sean could maybe square off with Robert here with some trivia or something like that. But I know we're kind of pressed for time today. But I mean, for me, Robert, I've always been a huge Star Trek fan. I think for me, it started when I was a kid and I was sitting in front of the TV watching. They had shown the 25th anniversary Star Trek special that was on TV.
Sure.
And, it kind of just really took me back because I didn't know Star Trek up until that point. And, I got to see these actors and I got to see, space and the adventures that Star Trek really brought forth. And, from there, that's when I really got into it and got to see what Star Trek was all about. And so ever since then, I've been, a big fan of the series, minus...
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite of the series?
Favorite series? I grew up with Next Generation,
Sure.
But, as I watch more episodes in syndication anymore, I really like Deep Space Nine. I feel like if they were to continue making movies, when they were making movies in the late 90s, the whole end of the DS9 series with some of those overarching stories, would have been great to really move on to the big screen, with the Dominion War that they were doing and stuff like that. I felt like, those would really have transitioned well onto the big screen. What do you think?
I totally agree with you. And, I'll admit this publicly. I'm a huge fan of Star Trek novels.
Yeah.
I've read Star Trek novels since I was a kid, and they've done a really great job continuing the universe in novel form, both with the Deep Space Nine crew and Star Trek Voyager. There was an incredible series of books by a guy named David Mack, who's one of my favorite Star Trek writers, the Destiny trilogy. I can't recommend it. Epic science fiction trilogy that involves all the characters, and it deals with the Borg send 7,000 Borg cubes into the Alpha Squadron.
Oh, wow.
and it's all about what happens, and it's so cool, so great. So they
You still there, Robert?
continuing the stories of Next Generation, Next Generation, and Voyager. So they're great. But yeah, I agree with you. I'd love to see a Deep Space Nine movie. I think they should do it down and dirty, gritty.
Yeah, and
like
I think
Tarantino movie.
Yeah, and that's the I think that was the cool part that we were exposed to in Deep Space Nine was, this underbelly layer of Federation and what goes on out out there in the in the Star Trek universe. That obviously Next Generation was that cleaner, more stylized version of Star Trek, and then Deep Space Nine came along, and it was in the same time period, but it dealt with some other issues that weren't on the bridge of the Enterprise, and I think that's the one thing that it had going for them, and it kind of had like a little bit of a Star Wars feel to it, where it was you were encountering these these scumbag aliens that were hanging out on a space station, and you're having run-ins with the Klingons and the Cardassians all in the same day.
The Kardashians?
Yeah. The Kardashians are taking over. Yeah.
With the Star Trek movies, they've made 13 Star Trek movies, and they're all literally about the same thing. They're all about the Starship Enterprise and her command crew.
Right.
You have 9 movies set with Kirk, Spock, Uhura, Chekhov in 2 separate universes, and then you have 4 movies with the Next Generation crew, but it's still always about the Enterprise and her command crew.
Right.
And the Star Trek universe is such a rich place to explore that you could make all kinds of different kinds of movies in the Star Trek universe if you wanted to, but unfortunately I don't think that it's understood that that's possible.
And Robert,
at least the powers that be, when they're spending $200 million on a movie, they have to do something that's
absolutely
familiar.
Robert, and now given the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and given what we were just talking about with the television series and how they translate the movies, what do you think the success would have been like? Had we had a shared universe of movies with with Star Trek, considering we had Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, all out, with, overlapping one another, but within, a little over a decade of one another, how cool do you think that, a shared universe of movies would have been, and what do you think that would have done for the franchise?
Well, unfortunately, I think Star Trek has always been sort of a niche thing.
Yeah.
At the height of its popularity, the height of Star Trek's popularity probably was in the early with the 2-part or 2-hour finale, all good things. And then the Generations movie soon after, that was arguably Star Trek was at its peak popularity. Perfect for culture Time magazine, and I think that Star Trek always. I don't think Star Trek has the mass appeal of, say, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because, even though I got into Star Trek when I was a kid, Star Trek is a pretty heady, intellectual franchise.
Yeah.
I don't think it will ever have the popular appeal of Star Wars or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, and that's been proven time and again. Even the new J.J. Abrams produced Star Trek stuff, they've made money, but they haven't made the kind of money of other franchise properties, even though they've tried. I mean, Paramount would love to have the same kind of success they have with the Transformers films that gross $1 billion. I mean, a franchise, a successful franchise now, really has to make between $500 million and $1 billion to be considered truly successful. And even when they're making, like, Star Trek Into Darkness was a hugely expensive movie, and they really pushed. Star Trek has never traveled well internationally either, and they really pushed hard to have Star Trek Into Darkness succeed globally, but it fell short from what they hoped it would do, because ultimately Star Trek's roots are in Kennedy-era America, and it's basically, if you think about it, Star Trek is America goes to space and brings American core values to the universe. And that's why traditionally, while Star Trek is big in the UK and Germany and somewhat in France, it's not real big elsewhere around the world. And I don't know. It would really take a Kevin Feige, a real visionary, at the helm to make Star Trek into something that I think would work the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe works.
Right. Earlier, we had brought up a story about Michelle Yeoh being cast as one of the Starfleet captains on the upcoming Discovery series. What are your thoughts on the way that they've been handling that so far, and do you think it'll be successful on a streaming platform like on the CBS channel?
Well, first of all, I love Michelle Yeoh. I'm a huge fan of Hong Kong cinema, and I was, before she was in Crouching Tiger or Tomorrow Never Dies, I was a fan of her work that she had done previous to those films. And I think it's great casting. There's no reason why, we can't have a multi-ethnic cast. Or Star Trek is one thing. Plurality has always been part of Star Trek's appeal, I think, and I think it's great that they cast her. But whether it'll, as Les Moonves has said, it'll make its money back because they've already covered it with European streaming sales to like Netflix Europe. So although I don't know if it's going to be so successful only on a CBS streaming service, I think they're going to quickly they'll figure out a way to get it out beyond that streaming service. Because look, I understand everybody wants to have their own streaming service. I get it. But CBS simply doesn't have enough programming. They've now got the Good Wife sequel that they're going to launch, and they've got Star Trek, but is that enough to get the kind of diversity that you get from, say, Netflix audience?
Right.
I just don't know. I don't know. I'm dubious. As to the series, I was really excited about Brian Fuller. I think Brian Fuller is a tremendous visionary, and what he did with Hannibal, he took an existing franchise, the Thomas Harris books, Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Rising, and then the 5 films. We were very familiar with that mythology, and yet he went back to the source material, and the movies, and he was able to create something that was brand new and really exciting, a different take on that material. And I was really looking forward to him shepherding that, but doing the same thing with Star Trek. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, caused him to pull back as showrunner. I think Star Trek needs a visionary showrunner. It needs someone who understands not only serialized storytelling, but also understands modern science fiction and where we're at today. And I think ultimately Star Trek still, for the last 50 years, we've been presented with a vision of the future. And it hasn't taken into consideration the technology that is developed, things like transhumanism and where are we going to be when medical technology and biotechnology extend our lifespans by 200 years, and we can replace our body parts with implants and things like that. I mean, I think Star Trek really needs to grow with the times. But I'm excited. I mean, I can't wait to see it. New Star Trek, bring it on. There hasn't been a new Star Trek TV show on since 2005, so I can't wait.
Absolutely.
I just hope that we've got a really strong... If there's one thing that I learned working on the Next Generation Blu-rays, especially talking to all the writing staff, you really need a clear vision at the top, somebody who really understands what they're doing. Next Generation really didn't work until Michael Piller took over in the 3rd season and mandated that all of the stories needed to be about the principal characters, not necessarily the outside thing. And then Ira Steven Behr made Deep Space Nine really what it was. So I'm excited.
Hey, Robert, what was one of your favorite Next Generation episodes, and what episode would you say was the worst, or just like the most far-fetched? I have my far-fetched episode ready. I don't know, but I want to hear what you have.
Well, I think some of my favorite Next Generation episodes are not surprising because they're the episodes that everybody tends to say. I love second season's Measure of a Man. I love The Inner Light. I love Yesterday's Enterprise. I love Best of Both Worlds. I love Tapestry, the episode where Q takes Picard sort of It's a Wonderful Life episode.
Yeah.
There are other episodes of Next Generation that I couldn't stand, like Night Terrors or Realm of Fear, where Barkley is seeing creatures inside the transporter, which makes no sense at all.
What about Sub Rosa?
Oh, well, Sub Rosa is probably one of the worst, not only of Next Generation, but one of the worst episodes of science fiction television ever.
Thank you.
And when we were doing it's the bodice ripping, ghost rape, candle masturbation episode of Star Trek. I mean, you watch that episode and you're like, what am I watching? What is this?
Yeah, I don't think Sean
has an affair with the ghost.
I don't think Sean here has a clue about this episode. That's why I kind of
not in tune with my.
That's why
trekking.
I kind of brought it up, and I wanted to have Robert give his input, so Sean, you could kind of see what exactly you're missing. But
oh my balls!
But basically,
although I will say this, it's beautifully shot. The work that they did, it's a really great looking episode of Star Trek. I mean, it's totally absurd.
Yeah.
But the production team was really firing on all cylinders. It's a great looking episode of Star Trek. But you're like, really? It's the most non-scientific, silly episode ever.
Yeah.
But the fact that it exists and we can make fun of it mercilessly 25 years later says something.
Absolutely.
All right.
I love it.
So I've been a fan of you for the last couple of years. You know, I see you on the Collider Hero shows and the Schmodown matches.
You're a true sweaty.
Absolutely, yeah. I watch them every week. So how did you first get involved with Collider?
Well, it's interesting. I've known John Schnepp for a number of years, and the LA sort of genre community. And when I say that, there's definitely a community in LA of people that love science fiction, fantasy, and horror that are all working away. We're workaday journeyman people that were producing TV shows, but we're also or movies or visual effects. That community, and he knew that I'd made movies and stuff, and he also knew that I was a huge sweaty. That I was I went for 25 years. I went and bought comics every in LA, and he asked me to be on the show once, and I was like, oh, okay, it was new, and I figured, okay, I'll go on the show, see if I have something to offer, and everybody seemed to respond. I mean, I think that the reason that they want me on Collider Heroes, the people that, I'm sure there's people that think I'm a monumental douchebag too. People that like me, I think they like the fact that I can be critical, but ultimately I'm overall very enthusiastic about all this material.
Oh, absolutely,
I genuinely have a deep love and affection.
And that very much comes through when you're talking about the different franchises that you've been a fan of all your life. From the deep cut comics that you talk about.
I grew up in a time when there wasn't any. Watched it grow and expand, and we live in the greatest time ever. I never thought that I would be seeing shows like Westworld or Game of Thrones on TV, and then watching the Marvel streaming series, and watching. I mean, we're about to get a Dominators crossover.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that crossover.
The Dominators? I mean, really? Are you kidding me? From the Invasion? I love the Dominators, and I love the science. I love all of it was all sort of, for me, a spin-off, an adjunct of the new Teen Titans when they brought all these characters in, and I can't wait. I'm so excited. I mean, who would have ever thought we would live in a time when we'd be getting? I just finished reading the new novel, Rogue One, the prequel to Rogue One, and we're getting another Star Wars movie about stealing the Death Star plan.
I'm still reading Life Debt right now.
Times. It's fantastic. I love it. So being a sweaty, being on Heroes has been a lot of fun, and Steph has basically kept me on, which has been great. And I'm really honored and privileged to be on there. And I really like the fact that there's a community around the Collider videos. People with the Schmoes and with Jedi Council. And,
oh yeah, definitely. I'm in all those.
And yeah, I mean, I read an article that somebody'd written for their college paper about how we've become the sports center for entertainment.
Yeah, it absolutely is just like that.
And I thought that was cool. I mean, you know, if people didn't watch us, it wouldn't be any fun. But people seem to watch us, and I really like how everybody interacts. And you know, sometimes people get really mean. Like I love Ashley Robinson, who's on the show with us a lot, but people are very, they're very unkind to her, and I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, you're gonna have those kind of people every now and then, but you know, I'm such a big fan of yours, and yeah, all the cast members that we see each week, and it's really been an honor to talk to you. Thank you so much for calling in, Robert.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's been great. And I really appreciate you guys getting the word out about all the different shows that we're doing, and thank you so much for everything that we've you know, promoting what we got going on.
Yeah, definitely. If you're ever on the East Coast, definitely hit us up, and we'll take you around Philadelphia.
Oh, I love that. I've never been to Philadelphia.
Well, we know your Seahawks beat up on us a little bit last week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll have some retribution.
That was joyful. I mean, you know, I'm a big Seahawks fan, so what can I say?
Yeah, we'll get you next time for sure. But where can everybody tell our listeners where we can find you online, Robert?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Burnett, Burnett, Burnett RM. Excuse me. And then you can find me on Instagram at RM Burnett, or hit me up on Facebook at Robert Meyer Burnett.
Awesome, very cool. Once again, thank you so much for calling in. We'll definitely look to have you call in again sometime soon.
All right, well, thanks. It's great to be here.
All right,
thanks, Robert.
Have a great weekend.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, man.